Bacteria. They're everywhere. Unicellular organisms literally covering every square inch of your body right now. As a matter of fact, they're even inside of you. Inside of your intestines, your stomach, your mouth, and other parts of your digestive tract. They're in your food, your water, your laptop keyboard, that guy's hand you just shook. You don't know where he's been, you should probably wash that hand. They're in extreme environments because archaeobacteria can survive in adverse conditions and really prefer to live there. Literally everywhere. Does that make you uncomfortable? Well, it shouldn't, because you will never be able to get rid of them all. And, quite literally, our lives depend on them. But what are bacteria? Wikipedia defines bacteria as a type of biological cell. They make up a large domain of prokaryotic organisms. They tend to be a few micrometers in length and have a number of fun shapes and sizes, ranging from spheres to rods and spirals. Bacteria were among the first life forms to appear on Earth and are present in most of its habitats. Anyway, what is going on inside of these microscopic components of our ecosystem? And how do their components interact to create something considered living? To start, let's consider the organelles within a bacterial cell. These organelles are small, specialized structures suspended in the cytoplasm within the cell that carry out specific tasks. Generally, bacteria cells contain a nucleoid, genophore, plasmids, ribosomes, and storage granules. These, of course, are suspended within the cytoplasm, which is composed mostly of water. The nucleoid in a bacterial cell is the irregularly shaped section of a prokaryotic cell where DNA is housed. Unlike eukaryotes, it lacks the membrane that is usually found around the nucleus. In addition to DNA, the nucleoid may also contain RNA, proteins and enzymes that can be used for cellular processes. The genophore, or chromosome, is a long double strand of DNA, usually in the shape of a circle, and contains much of the genetic material of the bacterial cell. The rest of the genetic material within the cell would be found in the plasmid. These small circular DNA fragments contain code necessary for antibiotic resistance and other things that help them to ruin our lives more efficiently. Next are ribosomes, the small organelles found throughout the bacterium responsible for protein synthesis, also known as translation. There we go. These ribosomes are smaller than in eukaryotes, but carry out the same function. The final organelle, storage granules, are similar to the starch grains or glycogen grains of plant or animal cells. However, bacteria tend to store nutrients as polyphosphates, glycogen, lipids, sulfur, or even nitrogen. This internal soup of organisms is contained within a cell envelope, responsible for protection of the cell, communication with the environment, maintenance of cellular shape, stability, and rigidity of the cell, as well as allowing appropriate metabolism, growth, and division of the cell. The cell envelope is made up of the plasma membrane, periplasmic space, cell wall, capsule, and an outer membrane in gram-negative bacteria. The plasma membrane, a familiar structure from eukaryotes, is responsible for controlling the passage of materials in and out of the cell as a permeability barrier. Next, the cell wall, composed of peptidoglycan, maintains the overall shape of the cell. Bacteria are either coccus, spherical, bacillus, rod-shaped, or spirillum, spiral-shaped. They may also be mycoplasma, which have no cell wall and no definite shape. The outer membrane is a lipid bilayer, just like the plasma membrane, and is only present in gram-negative bacteria. It contains lipopolysaccharide, LPS, which can be toxic to some hosts and trigger the immune system. Lastly, the capsule is a layer of polysaccharides found usually in pathogenic bacteria because it serves as a barrier to phagocytosis. What you will also see in some bacteria are fimbriae or pili, and bacterial flagella. Fimbriae, or pili, are hollow hair-like structures made of protein which allow bacteria to attach each other to cells. A specialized pilus, called the sex pilus, allows the transfer of DNA between bacterial cells. The bacterial flagellum, as shown in the model, gives the cell motility. This long appendage rotates by means of a motor in the cell envelope. Well, that was a mouthful. Oh, would you look at that? It's time for our open letter. This one goes to all other cell types, from the perspective of bacteria. Dear all other cell types, I know you all share one address, so I'll send one letter. First, I'll start with the amoeba. Even though you're a eukaryote and you claim to be more organized, just because you have a membrane-bound nucleus, we all know that the bacterial flagellum is far superior for movement to your pseudopodia, which, although do look cool on time-lapse when you crawl with them, are actually much more inefficient. Though you are known for eating bacteria using pseudopodia, that's an obvious ripoff from phagocytes. I'm just gonna say it. Also, your infectiveness is not even close to that of true pathogenic bacteria. The most you have is amoebiasis, a dysentery that isn't even as common as one caused by bacterial infection. Next up, animal cells. Just like the amoeba, you're eukaryotic and have that membrane-bound nucleus and vacuole that makes you feel so superior. Well, I wouldn't get so confident when you don't have plasmids to help you gain antibiotic immunity. Also, your lack of a cell wall seems pathetic when a bacterial cell has a cell wall, inner and outer membrane, and also a capsule. Also, even if I don't have an endoplasmic reticulum like you, or mitochondria, or lysosomes, or linear DNA, or multiple chromosomes, plus I'm smaller than you, I still have fimbriae. You win this round, animal cell, but I assure you, binary fission and conjugation are superior to mitosis and meiosis in reproduction any day. Next up, plant cells. Just like you, some types of bacteria are autotrophs. Even though we may be called primitive and small, our cell walls contain lipids and proteins compared to cellulose in yours. We also don't have chloroplasts or mitochondria or chromatin in the nucleus, or an organized nucleus much less, but we are actually capable of motility that isn't tropic or nastic. So, chew on that. Anyway, I left virus for last because I knew that there was nothing superior about a virus. First of all, you guys are barely even considered alive, because you need a host in order to reproduce. That is just pathetic. Even we bacteria have binary fission and conjugation. People need an electron microscope to see you, but bacteria are far larger and only need a light microscope. You don't even have cells, while bacteria, we're unicellular. Even worse, bacteria can be useful in some situations, but you are just usually harmful. You're responsible for AIDS and systemic infection for crying out loud, but bacteria? We're just a localized infection and pneumonia at worst, and contributors to your gastrointestinal environment at best. You only have one DNA/RNA strand, and eukaryotes thought prokaryotes were bad. In conclusion, bacterial cells are just the best. Don't at me. Sincerely, Bacterial Cells.
Okay, so what have we learned today? First, we learned what bacteria are. That is, the domain of unicellular prokaryotic microorganisms present in most of Earth's habitats. Next, we learned the components of a bacterial cell: the nucleoid, ribosomes, storage granules, cell wall, plasma membrane, cytoplasm, capsule, plasmids, fimbriae, pili, and flagellum. Once again, let's recap the differences between bacterial cells and other cell types. Animal cells and plant cells are both eukaryotes, along with amoebae, so they all have mitochondria, lysosomes, membrane-bound nuclei, linear DNA, and Golgi apparati that, unfortunately, our friends bacteria do not have. Amoebae also move using pseudopodia, while bacteria have flagella for motility. Eukaryotes reproduce with meiosis or mitosis, while bacteria stick to binary fission and conjugation. We also learned about the inferiority of viruses that are still somehow able to hijack other cells. Viruses aren't considered living, so they are unable to satisfy all the characteristics of living organisms without a host cell. That is, They can't reproduce without a big, strong cell to latch onto. They also only contain one DNA/RNA strand, with really only a few other structures surrounding that strand, compared to bacteria, which contain multiple components.